Part of the recovery process for those affected by the Maui wildfires is dealing with feelings of grief and loss.
A nonprofit on Maui called Na Keiki O Emalia provides support to grieving children, teenagers, and their families following the loss of a loved one. Now joining us from Maui on behalf of the organization is Sarah Tomasic. Thank you for your time. So Sarah, what type of services is your organization providing for those impacted by the wildfires?
Aloha and mahalo for having me. First and foremost, I want to offer my most heartfelt condolences to all families in Lahaina and all families on Maui who've lost someone to these fires, especially as new names come out. We know a new wave of grief flows over our island community. So in terms of Na Keiki O Emalia, Na Keiki O Emalia provides peer-to-peer grief support for keiki by partnering with Maui schools. Most recently, we hosted a keiki grief relief event in Wailuku in central Maui this past Sunday. Approximately 200 people attended. We were able to distribute hundreds of toys, had a lot of fun activities for the keiki. About 50 backpacks, a lot of essentials were distributed to families as well as food. But the most important part maybe, and the reason that we decided to host this event so soon after the fires began, is the relief part. So, for example, one tutu told us it was the first smile she had seen on her granddaughter in a week, which is, of course, heavy. Studies show keiki do need positive experiences after a traumatic event and are more likely to grow into a successful adult if they have a consistent, caring adult presence in their life with whom they can process their grief. So in terms of those positive experiences and that grief support, we are not telling keiki how to grieve. We want them to express their experiences of grief through art and through peer-to-peer facilitated grief groups. So that's one of the programs that we offer to the keiki on Maui.
Yeah, that's really great. All the work that you're doing is so amazing, and your services are obviously so important right now. So how can other people, what's the best way to help, folks, whether it's kids or adults that are grieving?
Mahalo for asking. That's a great question. I think one of the most inspiring parts about this last 10, 11, 12 days, I've kind of lost count, things are moving so quickly, is seeing the lahui come together for each other. That is a beautiful part of Hawaii. That is a beautiful part of Aloha. And we have seen so many people reach out to ask us that same question. How can we kokua? How can we show up for our keiki? Na Keiki O Emalia is committed to provide grief support to keiki in the long term. One of the things that I've heard a lot lately is this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. And Na Keiki O Emalia is in it for the long haul. Grief and healing takes time. We want to be able to show up now in terms of what is needed now and also be there in the months and years to come.
So Sarah,
some advice.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your statement.
Excuse me. So some advice I can offer people when they speak to keiki who have experienced the loss of someone close to them and those displaced by the fire who are grieving a number of losses, loss of home, loss of history, culture, how the aina has changed, as well as the almost 1,000 plus still people missing and unaccounted for. Check in on yourself, check in on each other. When we're speaking to keiki, we want to use simple words to talk about death. It's not uncommon for us to want to soften our words when speaking to keiki because we care. We've learned from psychologists that because keiki are concrete thinkers, we need to use words that are clear and direct. And as we listen and comfort keiki, ask them to share what they are thinking and feeling and know that it is going to be a long process and that those grief feelings, those feelings of loss will come up quickly, unexpectedly in the future, tomorrow, today. Kids can seem okay 1 minute and switch from playing to grieving pretty quickly. So know to be patient with yourself and to be patient with your keiki and those community members who are experiencing this trauma and experiencing this loss right now.
It's so easy for these kids to internalize these feelings of loss and sadness. How dangerous then can that be? If you don't address grief, what problems can result from that? Yeah,
thanks for asking. Our Our founder was actually a psychologist, and we know that grief, unexpressed grief, can turn into problems later on. While Na Keiki O Emalia is not here to diagnose, we're here to support and provide grief resource materials to Keiki that saves. That safe space for Keiki in which to grieve. We also need to show up for them in the long term.
All right, well, thank you so much for stopping by, and thanks for everything you're doing for families on Maui right now. Sarah Tomastic with Na Keiki O Emalia, we appreciate it. Aloha.
Mahalo. Aloha.